Hey guys, welcome to Midwest Fantasy Football Week 13. This is going to be a little different this week. Rather than trying to do a podcast style after writing an entire script, we're on off the fly, off the cuff on this one. I've wrote nothing. I have done no prep work. I am literally going to go through. I guess I did a little prep work. I figured out which matchups are the high score, the closest game, the biggest blowout, and then the other four. And I'm going to go through them all, figure out, just kind of recap the type of stuff that I normally make comments on for each one, and then talk about playoffs and waiver wire picks and the normal stuff at the end. That saves me the hour and a half time that I normally would put together for a script this week. So we'll see how it goes.
Let's go watch this train wreck.
This week's high score, Trent's Big Hat Brian, certainly a lot easier to say than your last name, knocked off Lee's unsolicited DAC picks, 165.7 to 142.2. Trent, I gotta say, I am quite glad that you are not in the main playoffs, as it's already been decided, and you are currently sitting in 7th. Your team has wrecked the last couple of weeks. I guess, Trent, when I meant was a couple of weeks, I meant a couple of months. Looking back, going for the last 8 weeks or so, you went 4-4, but you've had 5 games where you scored at least 120 points, and you went 4-1 during that stretch. You had 3 players put up 30-point games, led by Tyreek Hill with 32.6, A.J. Brown with 31.9, and Joe Burrow with 30 himself. The rest of the squad, everybody put up almost 10 points at least, between 13 and 9.5 points. On the bench, you did have a 20-point game from A.J. Dillon. Understandable to bench him. He's been pretty quiet for most of the season. But now that it's getting cold, he might be coming back a little bit more.
It's cold like this. It hurts like hell.
For Lee, you got 40.7 points from Devontae Adams, probably one of the high scorers this week. Besides that, you got 27.2 from Garrett Wilson, 18.1 from Ezekiel Elliott, and a couple other double-digit games. If you want to look at the low points of your team and really why you kind of lost on this one, you only got 3.9 from Nick Folk and 3.9 from Tampa Bay's defense. For Lee, you didn't really have anybody on your bench that you could have used to try to bring up those numbers either. Week 13's biggest blowout, my Los Pollard Hermanos defeating Brandon's blown call 147.6 to 87.6. My team this week, I had a trio of 24-point games with Geno Smith putting up 26 points, Tony Pollard putting up 24.6, and Christian Watson putting up 24.4.
You ride her till she bucks you, or you don't ride at all.
I got 19.1 from Saquon Barkley as well. Didn't really have anybody on the bench that could have done much. I pretty much had my best lineup in. For Brandon, you got 20.8 points from Keenan Allen to lead your squad, followed by 19.8 from Patrick Mahomes, and 16.4 from Christian Kirk. If you wanted to blame anybody for this particular game, you could probably look at your running backs. You got 8 points from Nick Chubb and 5.2 from Tyler Algier. Zay Jones with just 3.6 did not help either. And then, of course, Tennessee's defense with 1/10 of a point did not help.
Why do you even bother to show up at all?
You did have a pretty strong bench week this week. You got 14 points from Curtis Samuel and Cade Otton and 10.5 from Jerry Jeudy. So either of those guys could have helped, but I don't think it would have been enough to close the 60-point deficit on this game. This week's closest game, Nick's Tebow Hannes snuck past Tom's got a waddle after that deuce, 124 to 115.9. In an unusual twist, Nick's leading scorer this week was the Cleveland defense, putting up 34.7 points. As far as I know, that's one of the highest scoring defensive games in history that I'm aware of anyways. Editor Scott, actually, the guy recording the video should probably fact-check some of his shit. It's actually not even that close. The 34 points is somewhere in like the top 20, 25 games since like 1990. If you got to go back a little farther, the highest scoring game of all time was also Cleveland in 1989, in which they put up 50 fantasy points because they had 6 fumble recoveries, a couple picks, and 3 defensive touchdowns. You want to talk about a shit show. Besides that, you got 24.5 points for Samaje Perine in relief of Joe Mixon, and then 16.7 from David Montgomery. For Tom, you got, 24 points from Josh Jacobs, who continues to shine After that trade, you got 22.2 from Stephon Diggs and 21 points from Greg Zuerlein. Heck of a performance from your kicker this week. If you want to look at a loss on this one, I would probably be looking the way of Jalen Waddle. He only had 1.9 points. Yeah, due to that injury, some sort of leg injury, he was pretty limited and did not get much traction. With just needing 8 points to have beaten Nick, you could have gotten, let's see, Cam Akers. Ooh, look at that. I just cut his ass. Cam Akers. Yeah, getting Cam Akers in your flex spot, his 19 points was better than Isaiah McKenzie's 9.4 points in your flex. That would have been enough to get you the win. All right. Elsewhere, Aaron's picking so bad it hurts. Got a win over Chris's The Improved Chicken Boners. 116.7 to 83. For Aaron, he continues to be led by Jalen Hurts. He seems to be the strong guy this season for carrying him. He got 37.4 points, followed by 21.1 from DeAndre Swift, 14 from Evan Ingram, who, with 14 points, was the highest scoring starting tight end this week. That's how bad tight end was this week. 1 touchdown reception and 5 catches for 30 yards. That was the number 1 tight end this week.
This is worthless.
You had George Pickens in. He only scored you 1.2 points this week. Seems like he just kind of got shut out. You could have gotten Donovan Peoples-Jones in for your starting lineup. He had 16.8 points. For Chris, looks like you were led by 18.6 from Justin Jefferson, 17.1 by Daniel Jones, and 16.8 from, is that Zonovan? I think that's Zonovan, right? Yeah, Zonovan Knight.
It's cool, man. You're cool.
If you wanted to look at your team to say, hey, what the fuck happened and why did I lose this week? 0 from Mike Gesicki, probably not helpful. 3.6 from Justin Tucker. Not a great week from the number 1 kicker, although I don't think he's down to number 2 actually at the moment.
Blasphemy!
You have to start Richie James at wide receiver. He put up only 5.7 points, and Alvin Kamara also only put up 5.7 points, so not a great showing from either of those guys. Looking at your bench, you had Corey Davis with 13.5, Devin Duvernay with 12.9, and Alec Pierce with 18.6. You could have gotten a couple of those guys in favor of Richie James. It would have been a bump in points, but it wouldn't have been enough to get you the win. Derek's Now We're Cooking knocked off Pope 2.0's Holy Trinity, 118.9 to 83.3. With the win, Derek secures the last playoff spot, so congratulations for that.
Huzzah!
You got 29.7 from DK Metcalf, a pair of 16-point games from Derek Carr and Dalvin Cook. And then 14.8 from Philadelphia's defense. Looking on your bench, you had 16.9 from Rashad White. That would have been a small improvement over Paris Campbell, or a significant improvement over Ken Walker III, but you didn't really know that Ken Walker III was going to get hurt. So, you deal with what you can deal with there. For Pope 2.0, you were led by 18.1 from Justin Herbert, 14 from Jerick McKinnon, and a pair of 11-point games from Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary. You were definitely hurt by Cortland Sutton getting hurt. He put up a big old 0 for you. And then 5.9 from Van Jefferson Jr. Is that Van Jefferson Jr. or is it just Van Jefferson? I guess it's just Van Jefferson. I was thinking that was Jr. Unfortunately for you, despite those guys only having 0 and 5.9 points, your available wide receivers on the bench were nothing because they were either hurt or on bye or put up 0 points because also hurt. So it was a mess.
Thanks for reminding me.
And then in the big matchup this week, Alex's Big Al Sr. knocked off Jason's You Suck McBain, 147.4 to 106.9. This was, called Battle of the Top 2 seeds at the time, and now it's 1 versus 3 afterwards. So both very strong teams here. Alex gets the win at this point, getting 34 points from Amon-Ra St. Brown, 30.8 from Tyler Lockett, and 21 from the Dallas defense. Austin Eckler added in 13.5, and Tom Brady 17.1 as well. It's a really strong showing. You had a couple of 10-point players on your bench. One was Marcus Mariota, which was not an improvement over Brady, and Jordan Palmer 13 points would have been an improvement over Travis Etienne's 7.6 in your flex. Over on the other side, Jason, you were led by 21.2 points from Devontae Smith, 20.4 from Robbie Gould, and 16.9 points from Josh Allen. You also had a pair of 10-point games from your running backs of Aaron Jones and Latavius Murray. Looking at your bench, you had 16.7 points, deciding not to play Jamar Chase first week off of injury. That bump, that's 16 points, would have been a nice bump over Amari Cooper's 8. Would have only been about a 10-point bump for you. Wouldn't have mattered in the long run. Also, you were rostering Denver's defense, which would have been the better start over the New York Giants by about an extra 4 points. And finally, Pope 1.0's Gattaca knocked off Drew's West Coast CMC 122.3 to 78.6. I'm having problems talking. It must be time to crack open the beer. Trying to talk a little better here. Pope 1.0, your team was led by Terry McLaurin, 24.5 points, and a pair of 20-point games from CeeDee Lamb and from Isaiah Pacheco.
Pachinko!
You also got 14.3 from Chris Godwin and 13.8 from Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh dear God, there's 2 of them.
If you want to look at a weak spot on your team, you did have Jeff Wilson just put up 0.3 points. And then, Minnesota's defense put up 11 points for you, which was pretty good. But you could have gotten San Francisco's 21.7 in off of your bench just for a little extra points. Over on the other side, Drew, you were led by 28.6 points from Christian McCaffrey and then 12.3 from Deebo Samuel. Other than that, no double-digit games. Lamar Jackson's injury did not help. You just got 1.3 points from him, followed by 3.4 from Tyler Higbee, 6 from Cordell Patterson, and 4 from the Pittsburgh defense. You did have several double-digit games on your bench. Kirk Cousins with 11.8, Alan Lazard with 11.7, and Leonard Fournette with 14.1. Even if you'd gotten all those guys in, you still weren't going to win this matchup. Looking over at the playoffs, looks like the playoffs are pretty much decided. They are decided. All the teams in question, we know who's going to be in the main playoff. We know who's going to be in the Deuce playoff. Really, at this point, it's just seeding is what the deciding factor will be. In the main playoff, the number 1 seed's probably pretty much locked up. Alex has got a win over 3 teams that are right behind him at 9-4, and more than a 100-point lead on me, who was the second closest scoring. So even if you were to lose and I were to win, I'd have to outscore you by 100 points to go by you. It's probably not likely to happen. So I'm pretty comfortable saying I think Alex will be the number 1 seed. Number 2 seed is still available, depending on who wins, who loses this week. If I win, I'll probably be it, because I've got a 100-point lead on the 2 teams behind me. But if I lose, either Tom or... Well, not Tom. I guess Tom technically could. Either Tom, if he gets a win and all 3 teams ahead of him were to lose, or Jason, if I were to lose and you were to win, you're going to get that, or Scott, you'd have to outscore Jason and by 50 points, and then, that would be enough to get you the number 2 seed. So there's some spots in play. Also, there's this cool little tool I found if you want to try to figure out all the matchups and figure out who needs to win what to try to figure out where your seeding needs to be. Here's this tool. I'm probably demonstrating it on the screen right now. I don't really know. We're going to see how it goes. I got to see if I can figure out how to record the screen as I want to do this. So down in the Deuce playoffs, I think there's probably 3 to 4 teams that are really fighting for the Deuce at this point. Nick currently in last, Chris is in second to last, Lee's in third to last, and Pope 2.0 is in fourth to last. Now the thing to note is Pope 2.0 has got the least amount of points of all 4 of those teams. So if he were to lose and any of the other 3 teams were 2 of the 3 teams that are 4 and 9, if they both were to win this week, they could easily bump Pope 1.0 out of that spot and dump him back down into the bottom of the standings. But it is close. 3 teams are really right next to each other. Lee's in the best spot with 1,500 points. He's got like 150 more points than anybody else, so he's going to get any of the tiebreakers. Just as a reminder, Yahoo still only allows 6 teams in the playoff bracket. I can't do the full 8, which doesn't make any damn sense, but it is what it is. So what I end up doing in that situation is I will give the eliminated spots to the 2 teams that are the highest scoring, because it's least likely that they will continue to play for the season. Now, there's not necessarily the clear-cut line that there usually is between this team should have maybe made the playoffs but didn't make it. This year there's a 2-game gap between 6th place and 7th place. So I think it's anybody's game this year for who could be the Deuce. It's really going to come down to whose team craps the bed the rest of the way out here. In terms of this week's free agency bidding, there was quite a bit of hot candidates here. If you look at just this week alone, there were 3 main players that were bid on, with the big one going to James Cook from Buffalo's running back, who went to Lee. His $21 bid was over Tom, Trent, and Scotty B. And then Kansas City's defense, J Money, outbid myself and Trent, $10 versus $9 versus $8. And then Tom was really excited about Jared Goff. His $2 bid outbid Scotty B. In terms of new wagers, the only one that I'm aware of was last week. There wasn't a video. I apologize for that. Life's pretty busy right now. It's shipping season. Everything is on fire all the time. That's just the way it goes. Last week, Derek and I bet a 6-pack on our matchup, and I just snuck by him in the fourth quarter of the Monday Night Football game with 1 catch. So, super close game. Hopefully this video comes out somewhat semblance of a regular video. I can figure out where to put a few jokes in here or there as I start to edit it, but with the time I had available tonight, that was the best I could do. So, hopefully you listen, hopefully you enjoy, and we will see you back here maybe next week. I will talk to you all as soon as I can. Have a good night.